Let's dive in. Today, I am so excited to share a conversation with Deborah Hurwitz talking about her signature pact system. Deborah Hurwitz helps ambitious professionals to break through paralysis of perfectionism and procrastination so they can complete the projects and goals that matter most to them. As an award winning composer, conductor, and recording artist, Deborah's internationally acclaimed projects include Cirque du Soleil, Cyndi Lauper, and Broadway hits Jersey Boys and Miss Saigon. Deborah has written and produced music for television shows ranging from Sesame Street to Million Dollar Listing and has performed on The Tonight Show, the Tony Awards, and twice at the White House. Wow. As both a career artist and the CEO of Cobalt Coaching, Deborah has mastered the art of rewiring entrenched patterns, eliminating doubts and distractions to achieve remarkable industry successes while honoring her creative self expression and personal integrity. She now helps a robust online tribe to do the same through her online shows and suite of coaching programs and courses. Deborah is also an award winning speaker and co author of the Amazon #1 bestseller, She Made It Happen 22 Inspiring Stories from Female Entrepreneurs Around the World. Deborah, I am so excited to get into our conversation today. Thank you for being here.
My pleasure. I'm not used to hearing the whole bio read. I'm just like, okay, that's a lot.
That is perfect. It's so good. I love for our listeners to get a background of who we're talking to and what it is you're here
Provide.
for and the impact you're
Yeah.
you're here to do. So let's start. We heard a lot in the intro, right? But I always like to start by giving our listeners just a little background of your story
Mhm.
uh, and why you're doing what you're doing now.
It is, of course, a long and complicated story, like so many people, especially who have had, midlife reinventions, which was definitely true for me. But I was, from a very, very young age, very involved musically. Even before I was a professional, I was a concert pianist doing the recital competition circuits as a teenager, playing with orchestras, and fell in love with electronic music production in college and started wanting to make music for commercials when I was like 20 years old. Moved to New York and cobbled together a freelance career as a commercial composer primarily and playing Broadway shows as like a keyboard sub. I would float around and play different shows and be on call as a sub. And then eventually I got into music directing. I music directed Miss Saigon. I was one of the associate conductors at like 28 or something. I was very into doing things as young and quickly as possible. I had a lot of ambition. I was pounding the pavements of New York City. And, this was all decades ago. And then like in my late 20s, I hit a little bit of a plateau where I had just raced out of the gate and acquired these credits and had this, quote unquote, sexy glam career, even though I was like a duck paddling madly beneath the surface to make it all work. And I noticed that people who had started off a little slower coming out of the gate were now catching up and passing me, right? I went to school with a lot of bankers, and the grunts at Goldman Sachs were now becoming, partners and that sort of thing. So I started to feel dissatisfied pretty early on, but I kept pushing and pushing and pushing. I did not have any idea back then that I was going to become a coach. Coaching wasn't even a thing at that point. Coaching in my world was musical coaching, where the coach was the disgruntled piano player, angry that the young ingenue was doing better than they were, right? Like that was, coach was not the person you wanted to be. And I really didn't know anything about the industry, but I knew that I was into personal growth. I was into relationships. I always had that going back to a very young age. I really was always fascinated with how brains worked and how humans worked and how relationships worked and how people got where they wanted to go. Fast forward a bunch more years, and I had played a bunch of Broadway shows, and I was the music technical designer and synth programmer for Jersey Boys Worldwide, put up about 25 different companies there, conducted the New York company for its first 6 years, did a bunch of stuff there. It was kind of my main gig for almost 17 years. And then I got this opportunity to work with Cirque du Soleil in their flagship production here in Hollywood, where I am now. Well, actually, I'm at the beach, but it was in Hollywood. And it was a dream come true for me. It was the trifecta of what I had wanted, what I thought were my top career goals. It was working with Cirque, which was absolutely like my #1 dream job. It was working with Danny Elfman, who's A-list Hollywood film composer. So it was theater and movies at the same time, which was just amazing and didn't otherwise happen. And it was a sit-down theatrical production in LA, which also did not happen. So, and the show was supposed to run for 10 years. They installed it. They did $100 million installation into the Kodak, now Dolby Theater up in Hollywood. I mean, it just didn't get any better. It was like the God I don't believe in came down from on high and handed me my dream gig in every conceivable way. And I was like, this is it. This is what I'm doing for the next decade. Woo! Right. And then the show that was supposed to run for 10 years ran for 2 and then closed. And I was dumped unceremoniously out on my ass in LA with no idea how to make a living doing what I had been doing for the previous 20 years or so. And I did not want to go back to New York and deal with East Coast winters and my tail between my legs. And, I had this glamorous exit from the freelancing world to go run away, join the circus and work with my heroes. And I wasn't going to be like, oops, that didn't work out. Okay, hi again. No. So I was like, I got to figure it out how to be here. And I had wanted to be living in LA and scoring for TV and movies anyway. And that was when I got some of the first of the lessons that would ultimately be the living I make now and the work I do now and this calling that I just did not even know I had. Like I thought, okay, well, I already had the glamour gig. So if I'm going to figure out something else, I just want a way to make money and not hate my life. Like the bar was really low. But what happened in those ensuing years was I learned just how deeply burned out I was. I learned how I had like abused my body and psyche, pushing myself, running on fumes, feeling lots of feelings that I wasn't really feeling or processing or healing. I learned that where I had waited so long to act on the perfect idea in the perfect way and line it all up perfectly, not only did the actual dream gig with all the boxes checked not work out the way I had hoped, through no fault of my own. None of the artists, we all did our best work. But I also, when I went to then move into more film and TV scoring, realized that the role of the composer in that world is very different from the role of the composer in theater, musical theater. The composer is God in a musical. The composer is the maker of the thing. But in TV, composer is the post-production, below the line after catering and limo drivers, the carpet and wallpaper for the thing. Not to get into all the technical details of that, but it was artistically and creatively not what I had imagined. And it took me all those years to find out. And then I was really in a pickle because I didn't even want to do the thing I was supposedly ambitious to do. I was completely burned out. I didn't even want to make music for anybody. Never mind like burned out on the business or disappointed in people or all of that, which was true. Never mind having not treated myself well for all those years, which was true. I just didn't even have any connection to what had me go for making a living in music in the first place. I didn't care. I was so disconnected. I was so depleted. And I knew I needed to do something else. I needed to take the money out of the music and just restore my own well-being and peace of mind because I had just no access to any of that. And there were other things going on in my personal life at the time. I mean, it was just the perfect storm of like midlife crisis and depression all together. And out of that, I went through a 6-7 year reinvention process. I tried a bunch of different things. I tried a bunch of different entrepreneurial pursuits. I tried different musical and industry ideas, bunch of stuff that either were okay, but ultimately did not yield what I wanted. And then I invested heavily in coaching and mentorship in ways that I had never even thought of doing before. I recognized that I needed to heal myself at a very deep level. It wasn't just find the right gig. It was like actually be the person in this skin that I was not being. And I learned about the value of integrity and authenticity, not just like buzzwords or good looking marketing terms, but actually corresponding to me living life better and feeling better in my own skin. And then in 2017, I learned how to do what is now the backbone and how you and I met, the backbone of my business, which is a summit. Basically an affiliate marketing partnership where a bunch of experts and I get together to solve a problem that I care about and that presumably other people care about. And then I solve those problems with those experts alongside the audience that we've all built together. And at the time that I created my first summit, which was Productivity for Perfectionists, which I just completed the 9th annual, and I will do 10 and then we'll see what happens. I did not know what I was going to do. And I want to say this to, I know your audience is entrepreneurs and women who are looking to create a business, launch a business, scale a business. So much of the time we think we need to have the whole thing like dialed in before we start. We got to figure out steps 16 to 20 before we take step 1. I did not know what I was going to sell on the back end of that summit. I did not have a business aside from being a Broadway music director, film composer, and a consultant with a network marketing business where I had done quite well relative to how most people do. I had hit those top echelons, but I was still very, very unhappy and wasn't making the money I really wanted to make. So I didn't know what I was going to sell. I was not calling myself a coach at all. I was actively avoiding calling myself a coach. I had no certifications in coaching and transformation, life transformation. The whole phrase life coach, even to this day, to me is like, look, there's like so much junk out there and so much chicanery. And there, I did not have anything dialed in. I just knew that I was someone who was smart and unfulfilled. And I had tried a lot of things and I had done some really specialty, important, against the odds things in my life, but they weren't adding up to me being happy. And I just knew that there were some problems of me not doing the things I really meant to do that were like really core to my self-expression and my contribution on the planet, but I just always had good reasons why not. And I knew that there were these problems I needed and wanted to solve. That's what I had. And I understood that I was following a business model and learning a business model where you can make a lot of money doing that. I didn't know how I was going to make that money. That's where I was. So I want to tell you guys, I tell this to my clients all the time. If you have no freaking idea what you're doing, but for the moment, you're just following a plan that's going to get you some metrics of success you care about, do the work, dig in, do it as authentically and cleanly as you possibly can, and then take one step at a time to continue to iterate towards the goal that you want. So after that summit, and then learned how to do a webinar. I learned all these things that were just all brand new to me. I knew absolutely bupkis about online marketing. I had absolutely no freaking idea what I was doing. I was learning what I was doing as I went. And then I got on my first sales call with the person that ended up being my first client in a coaching business I had not set up, where I made a $10,000 offer on the spot on that call, and he said yes. And I took a $2,500 credit card payment over the phone on a Stripe account I had set up one day earlier just in case. And then I walked out of my office with legs of jelly going, oh my God, this shit works.
That's amazing. That is amazing. Oh my
And
gosh.
then fast forward 8 years, I have Cobalt Coaching, which wasn't even available publicly for several years because I didn't want to give up my, rock star artist status for like, oh, now I'm going to be a coach. Like I just, I didn't do it. So you couldn't even find me as a coach online until 2020. And since then, I've just been growing this company and this team and client base and success stories and all that good stuff. And I really am doing what I'm supposed to be doing on the planet, which I never thought I would say when I was burned out in show business.
Thank you for sharing. So much to unpack there. Okay. And I'm like having these questions. I should have been writing this down, but that is okay. So I think the first thing is that, like you said, a lot of our listeners are probably thinking, and I know I've worked through this with my clients, is I need to get step 16 to 20 done before I even start step one.
Yes.
For perfection doesn't always mean profitable. We don't have to wait until everything is perfect to keep moving or to get started.
Pattern interrupt that I would like to offer there, because as a recovering perfectionist who specializes in working with perfectionists, I understand how challenging it can be to take coaching or advice when you think that what you're being asked to do is lower your standards or dumb it down or make it at a fourth grade level so the world can understand, like these sorts of things, like some of the traditional wisdom around marketing, copywriting, that sort of thing, chafed at me. Because I am an Ivy educated smarty pants who likes her own brain. And even though I felt like my brain was working against me for a lot of years, and that was one of the main things I had to heal, I didn't want to dumb it down for anybody. Like, I don't know if we're cursing on this podcast or not, but like, fuck right off, dude. Like, no. I was unhappy, miserable, disconnected, not making the money I wanted, not fulfilling on any sort of contribution or purpose, but I still didn't want to dumb it down. You know what I mean? For me, there was just a lot of resentment, a lot of rage, a lot of pain there. So you don't necessarily need to be a rage monkey about it, but there are a lot of people out there who are just like, I want it to be great. Like, I want to do the right thing and I want to do it well. I want to do it beautifully. So when we say, don't be perfect, be this instead, our whole, even if we consciously want to take that sort of advice, because we know whatever we got dialed in is not working, we may or may not be able to take it, because if we're compromising at a deep level values we hold dear, we will not do that, or we will do it in a way that leaves a mess. So rather than saying, the enemy, perfect is the enemy of the good, or done is better than perfect, or all these things which are true and wise, but may not be wisdom we can accommodate, what I like to offer is you actually cannot be perfect until You know what you've got, and you don't know what you've got until you break open that fourth wall and play to an audience. Like on a Broadway show, any performing arts, anything, you never have an opening night or even a press night until you've done multiple previews. You've got a soft open, you're doing dress rehearsals, you're putting things together and seeing what lands, you're putting things in front of people and seeing what you've got. And there are always surprises. Oh, we thought that was going to be where an applause break was. Nope, they were like stone silent there. Oh, we thought that would get a laugh. That didn't get a laugh. Oh, we wanted to run that right through. It got a laugh in the middle. It's been getting a laugh in the middle of every performance for the last 6 performances. We got to open that up and make a break. People want to laugh there, right? And that applies to any work product, service, whatever, where you are serving a customer base, a client base, an audience, your fans. If you are doing something that involves other humans, you need to get it in front of other humans before you know what you've got, before you roll out your version 1.0, much
Yes,
less your 2.0, 3.0.
I like how you explain that because it is so true. I mean, the women that I work with and the clients that I have, that is part of the thing. They really are here. They want to help people. They want what they are doing to make
Yeah,
a difference, to make that impact, to actually help the other person. And
right.
so if we're putting it out there before it's done or before it feels perfect, I see where you're coming from, where it's almost that like it feels too risky to actually do it.
And that's
Out.
what we're really avoiding, because perfectionism is a very sneaky kind of fear, right? We want it to be perfect and we don't want to fail. And really, that's about us. I'll spend all day on that perfect Instagram story that's, by the way, going to disappear in 23 hours or whatever. But I'm going to spend all day on it because it has to be perfect. It has to be right. It has to be exactly what that perfect client avatar of mine needs to hear. So they'll be like, and I want likes and hearts and I want engagement. I have to do it right. So I get engagement, like all these metrics of success, which are so arbitrary and don't actually add up to a business, by the way. You don't have a business when you've got a website or a great Instagram profile. You have a business when people buy your stuff. And you got to be messy and imperfect getting through that, getting your stuff in front of people, putting whatever you have out there to find out if it's valuable to anyone. And you don't know whether it's valuable or not until you make multiple connections on multiple levels, have multiple conversations. You get a like or not a like on one post. You don't know bupkis. You just don't. I'm saying bupkis a lot today, right? But and this is why I say it's a cop-out and a good-looking kind of fear. Brene Brown says perfectionism is fear dressed up in a mink coat and Jimmy shoes, right? It's a good-looking fear. It's a fear that is like, no, I don't want to get it wrong. No, it needs to be excellent. It's a good-looking fear, but the fear is I will look bad. The fear is I will feel shitty, right? The fear is not actually I'm going to get it wrong with someone else. Because when you're trying to help, you can't help wrong. Now, you could, if there's something like, as I said that, I thought, okay, somebody's grieving and you step in it or something like that. Like, yes, there are ways in which you can get it wrong, quote unquote, like you say the wrong thing or you make someone feel worse. But we're not talking about that, right? We're talking about you put out a post that's supposed to like inspire someone or give them somewhere to go with it. You can't do that wrong, especially if you're doing something that is authentic and aligned. Like, this is what I got right now. It's going to help somebody or it won't. I do that 30 times, 50 times, 100 times. Maybe I'll know what I have. And I'm not saying to, spin your wheels, bang your head against the wall, overwork, overgive, overdeliver. I'm not talking about that either. Perfectionists who are on the people-pleasing side of things will do that. Go, I have to do more. I have to give more. I have to exert myself more. No, that's a different kind of problem. But when you're holding back because you don't want to get it wrong or because you want to fine-tune and perfect, that's about you, not who you're there to help. And the fear is understandable. And you want to treat that part of yourself with compassion and respect because that part of you is just trying to stay safe and stay alive. That's the most important thing you can do in this meat puppet body. But you got to give it a different job assignment than your social media.
Exactly. So how do you help your clients or help women move through that then?
So the first thing to know is that you're not going to get over the fear before you do the thing. And that's good news, bad news, right? So the bad news is you're not going to get over your fear before you do the thing. All the ways in which your heart is in your throat and you can't breathe right and you're terrified and the what ifs and all of those things, like there's a saber-toothed tiger chasing you, that is not going to change in advance of you doing the thing. Now we're talking about social media or marketing or whatever. It's press publish on something. It's call someone, text someone, send a DM. It's show up on a video, make a crappy little video. It's whatever it is that is you doing your thing. You are not going to feel better in advance of doing it. That's the bad news. The good news is, since you're not going to feel better in advance of doing it, there's nothing to wait for. And then when you do it, you feel a little better. And then when you do it again, you feel a little better than that, and so on and so forth. So my first business coach back in 2017, when again, I did not know what sort of business I had. I did not know what I was selling. I had 7 clients. I still didn't know what I was selling, but I was selling it and I was definitely helping people. And that was awesome. 8 months into that program, and I made my first sale 5 months into that program. So it was really, really new still. I was in recovery, but I was still like perfectionisming my way through everything, right? It was still lots of high standards and lots of holding back. And my business coach said, I want you to go live on Facebook every day for 3 weeks. I was like, I beg your fucking pardon. Because
No thanks.
I was now at this time, Facebook Live was still a thing. This was 8 years ago, but I was still a performer at heart, right? A creator, a producer, someone who had very high standards for video and audio production. Now, I had taken all those structures away to do the summit, else I would never have done the summit. So I did, and still do, by the way. Now I have a microphone right now because one of my friends and summit experts had this really adorable, I mean, how cute is this
Oh,
rainbow situation?
I was actually going to ask you about that.
I've been doing my business for 8 years without a microphone. I've done my summits with built-in camera and built-in mic on my laptop. Now, right over there is about 30 grand worth of audio production materials that I do not use in my coaching business because otherwise I would never get anything done. So she tells me go live on Facebook for 3 weeks. And I'm going, I got to wear makeup every day for 3 weeks. I got to do my hair every day for 3 weeks. No, that was not the assignment. The assignment was go live on Facebook every day for 3 weeks. Let me tell you, that broke a lot of my perfectionism. I did a Saturday afternoon one day with a baseball cap on and sun blown, wind blown, everything, right? And just, shitty lighting in places. I had a drink at one point. I went live at 5 every day for 20 days. I did a 20-day thing. Whatever. It was 3 weeks minus a day. Maybe I don't remember. Anyway, I did it. And I didn't always know what I was going to say in advance. I mostly didn't figure out anything in advance. I just looked, okay, where am I? What's happening right now? What was going on in my day? Once or twice I had some glam thing, like I did one of them from a photo shoot, right? So that was really, I'm just happening to be at a photo shoot now. And that just looked really great. But there were times when there was nothing exciting going on that I could see. But I was giving people a day in the life. I was giving people whatever top of mind wisdom I could dig for. I'm fairly articulate. I've lived a lot of life and I've got a lot of stories to tell. There was always something to share, but mostly it was for me. It was a lesson to me that showing up consistently over time, no matter what the value is of any one of those times, builds overall my character, contribution, presence. And I had people being like, I saw a little bit, even though it was just 3 weeks, like I saw a little bit of a following gather, right? Like the first few days, nobody was on live. And then by the end, it was like 7 or 8 people were on live. Okay, great. That's something. Did it directly lead to sales? Probably not. I don't think so. I don't remember. But it was a gigantic and important lesson for me. And now I don't think twice. Like, in fact, as I'm just sitting here going, oh, right, I was supposed to do a reel for my social media person that I just forgot about. But she'll be like, hey, can you give me some copy for a post or whatever? Or sometimes she'll just be like, hey, can you do a quick reel on? And it's whatever our CTA is. Right now we're, I don't know when this is going to air, but there's a masterclass and some replays are up or whatever. So it's like, do a quick reel on, having people register for the masterclass. Okay, great. I'm not like fretting over that. I'm going to turn the camera on. I'm going to hit record and I'm going to dial into what they're going to get out of attending that masterclass. I'm going to feel into who I made it for, why I made it, how it's going to help. I'm going to feel for one thing that could click something, make a difference for them. And then I'm going to talk about that for 30 seconds and then I'm going to shut the fuck up and post it.
Absolutely. I love how you said it was for me.
Yeah.
Because I think that is really important. The things that we're doing and pushing ourselves out of the comfort zone, and it's for us. Yes, it's going to help other people in return, but really it's making yourself stronger and helping you to show up who you really are authentically, like you said, not as a buzzword, but to really be real. And whether that's going live on social media or sending the email or launching the program or whatever it is you're doing, it's
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was. I got unapologetic because as an artist, also there was this sort of like ethos of, well, we're doing what we love. We would do it for free. We shouldn't ask for a lot of money. Like that's unpure. That's unseemly, right? It was like this sort of ethic or judgment of, if you love it, you shouldn't need to be paid a lot for it kind of thing. I followed me around for decades, even though the biggest artists in the world are some of the highest paid people in the world, right? And we don't get upset about that. But when it came to the way in which I was building this business, the things that were authentically important to me, not just the contribution I was here to make or the work I was here to do, but also the lifestyle I was here to create, the freedom for myself that I was here to create, the lightness and openness and filling my own cup and putting my own oxygen mask on first so that I could pour out generously to others without being depleted or resentful. That mattered. So I learned how to stop apologizing for making money. Packaging and pricing is now one of my superpowers that I help clients with, right? And they get like all excited about their offers once they're actually dialed into something where they genuinely feel the value of it and they're excited to receive the money. And
100%.
And that's really important. It's really important that we own, especially for women, that we own our right to take up space, that we own the value of our contribution, that we own the right to put price tags on that and invite people to pay us and receive those payments, right? Like these things are all really important. Like, what do you really need in order to feel satisfied and excited and fulfilled in your business, not just in your contribution, but in that you are doing this for a living? What kind of living is like rock star for you?
100%. And then being able to share your program, your offer, the price with confidence because the person on the other side of the screen, or if you're sitting in a chair, but most things I do now are on the screen,
Yeah.
can feel that too. And so when you're doing something you love and pricing it at something that feels good to you, I think it just helps exude that confidence.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
I think, going back to the idea of perfectionism and being a perfectionist, did you know you were a perfectionist
Oh,
or
yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I've definitely had clients show up and be like, I did not think I was a perfectionist, but then everything you said applied to me. So I guess I am. And what I want to say that is, it doesn't matter whether you call yourself a perfectionist or not. This is not a clinical diagnosis. I am not a therapist, psychiatrist, psychologist. It's about a particular collection of characteristics, beliefs, behaviors, habits, patterns that I put under the umbrella that I call perfectionism. And so I say perfectionist, this, that, and the other. You may or may not identify as a perfectionist. That doesn't matter. What matters is this a problem you also have? Is this how your brain also works? Would you like some help with that? Great. you know, so I absolutely called myself what I don't remember when I learned what the word was. It was after I was doing those things. So I was a perfectionist from about age 6 or 7, latest, might have been earlier. I had, as most people who have some sort of rampant perfectionism going on have, there was chaos in my household. There was very controlling and demanding parenting. And there were ways in which I needed to dial in specifics and order and details and metrics of success so that I could feel safe. That's ultimately what perfectionism comes down to, is like, do you need things to be a certain way so you can relax? But then you can't ever really relax because it's never good enough and you're never done. So I recognized that I was like never at rest in that way. I recognized there was always more to do. There was always a way in which I could do better. There was always that itch to achieve and earn my right to exist. And that was there from a very, very early age, and then found its way into many different ways of being as I grew up and got into my adult life.
and so how did you I know we kind of went through this when you were telling your story and you're talking about all the things you learned in this discovery. I don't know how I want to ask this question, but
Ask it
I think
straight. Go ahead.
I but like you said, I think some people show up not even knowing that they're a perfectionist or they have things that are going on. Like you and I talked about before this, is they have 5 million ideas happening, but then nothing
Right.
actually moves forward. So
Right.
how does that show up? Or how do we just move past that? Okay. We're
Well,
going to
I
go
think
with the
what you're
action.
describing, what you're
Yeah.
describing is sort of a problematic lack of self-awareness, right? Like
Yes.
you think the problem is this, but really what's happening is you are being this way, and that's giving you a certain reality or circumstance or situation. And you're like, but the situation is the problem. And you're looking at whether it's your clients or your audience or just humans out there, and you're going, no, 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 that's not it. You keep doing this dumbass thing, and that's getting you this result that you don't like, right? And we can see it for other people. And the first thing to bring to someone else's problematic lack of self-awareness is compassion, always. Because as we were just talking about earlier, there are always really good reasons that someone's nervous system is throwing up that kind of block, or not being able to see what's right in front of their face, or not able to change what they want to change, or not able to see that this is what they need to change. And the really good reasons are always staying alive, keep breathing, no threatening change, even the change we want. Any change is threatening. Stephen Pressfield does a beautiful job of this in The War of Art when he talks about resistance as an implacable universal force. Anything that you do to improve your life, whether it's, flat abs or launch a business or paint your masterpiece or sell a screenplay or travel the world or whatever the fuck, sorry, Christina, right, is going to generate resistance because it is change to your system, and your system is designed to have stable, secure sameness. Anything that you haven't already experienced is potentially a life or death threat to your nervous system, to the part of your brain whose one job is to keep you alive. Whether that's the primal brain, the limbic system, or the ways in which your nervous system has been trained, we get activated or triggered, fight, flight, freeze. For women, it's fight, flight, freeze, fawn, and fold. There's so many different nervous system reactions, 2,200 biochemical reactions to stress in any given moment. We got so many ways we can freak out,
Oh,
right?
isn't that great?
Isn't it delightful? But the positive thing here is, and again, there's a good news, bad news thing here, right? Like, just like you're not going to feel better before you do the thing. So guess what? Good news, you can do the thing and then you will feel better. Similarly here, our bodies are designed, our bodies and brains, the mind body situation here, the meat spirit in meat puppet body is designed to keep the body alive, keep things the same, keep things stable and secure. Don't create any change. Change could kill you. If I haven't lived through it before, it might kill me. Therefore, I should not have that change. That's what subconsciously is going on. So that's the bad news, is you're going to experience resistance, types of fears, wiggles, reactions, triggers, shutdown, freeze, whatever it is going to be. That's the bad news. But the good news is there's nothing to be afraid of about that. And that there are wonderful tools that you can learn to re-regulate your nervous system when you're all jacked up, to give yourself an experience of safety in just this moment so you can write for 10 minutes or so you can just dial that number, even if you don't hit call just yet, right? Like there are ways that you can take tiny incremental steps consistently over time, no matter how you feel or what you know or don't know, that will train your brain and your nervous system to welcome that experience, right? They say all emotions are some form of excitement. So you can call it fear, nerves, terror, or you can call it chomping at the bit, can't wait to do the thing, right? So much of our experience is very simply in how we frame it, how we speak of it, how we articulate it. So, the good news that you can train your system to welcome the indicators of the change you want mean, again, nothing to wait for, no problem with how it is. Now, what would you like next? Okay, let's facilitate that. And it just gets to be really simple and we break it down.
So I'm assuming you help your women with this inside of your program.
No, women. I serve women and men. Yeah.
Women and men. I'm sorry. I mostly work with women, so it's just
It's
always
okay.
coming off my tongue. So whoever you serve.
Yeah, the kinds of perfectionistic patterns that I serve most often show up with women. Like we question ourselves more than men we're trained to. We serve others ahead of ourselves more than men we're trained to, right? Like there are ways in which these patterns show up for women more frequently than they do with men, but that is changing. I will say the makeup of the population is changing for better or worse. So everybody's got perfectionism now. But yes, absolutely. That's of course what I help people with. It's basically just that, I say I help stuck perfectionists get shit done that actually matters to them, because we're all good looking, high achieving, high performing, right? Whether we're a get shit done person or a flaky all over the place, I'm ADD, I'm ADHD, whatever's presenting our brains are busy. Our brains are super busy. We're always thinking about stuff. We're always worrying about stuff. We're always trying to get it right. We're always in some way, shape, or form trying to figure out how to earn our right to exist. And one of the most important things that we can do further to that self-awareness piece is to give ourselves permission and space and opportunity to care about what we care about. That simply, to love what we love, to like what we like. Women especially are trained that, pleasure is wrong. Even though our entire systems are designed to seek it, we will turn it away, or we will find weird, unhealthy, disjointed ways to experience it because the straight ahead way is somehow not okay or dangerous. Right? We're no good to anybody until we're taking good care of ourselves. And no one can treat us better than we treat ourselves. So there are all these different ways that we make it safe for things to be how they already are. And then identify, what would I like? What matters to me? What's the action that counts? And then we start to not dismantle exactly, but get into right relationship with those mechanisms of what hold us back, what has us scared, right? The more important something is to us, the more resistance we will feel towards it, not the less. Right? It's one of these myths. We think, oh, if this is what I'm meant to do, I should just be rushing to go do it. It should be easy for me. If I'm having trouble or it's too hard, maybe I'm not meant for this thing. But it's the opposite. If it means something to you, of course your system is going to rise up in objection, because what if you fail? And this is the thing you care about. That can't happen. So better just wait until tomorrow to start. And then that happens for 10 years. And then you wonder where the time went.
Yes. Okay. I feel like you're speaking straight to me there. And I didn't think about it in that way before, because I've definitely had those thoughts like, maybe this isn't what I've meant to be doing. Maybe this isn't the thing, because there is that resistance, but it could be opposite. Maybe this really is the thing I'm meant to be doing, but there's that resistance because my
So it
nervous.
matters. It's high stakes. The experience in your system is this is high stakes. So all the objections to doing it wrong are going to come up.
And so, how do you help your people?
Well, it
Yes.
starts with going to www.howtogetbigthingsdone.com.
But would you say self awareness is the number one thing? I mean,
No,
I know. Okay.
sometimes self-awareness comes last, honestly. But that's why I'm here, because if you had to have the self-awareness first, it'd be a longer, harder road. So I help you create the experience that you want first, and then the results come. And the experience that you want will sometimes come with, like, you got to get through some discomfort to get through to the experience you want. But lots of times what people think they want is not actually the thing that must happen for them to have happiness or fulfillment. They're just associating that activity or that metric of success with their happiness and fulfillment. But what we find out when we reverse engineer it from the experience you want is that there are any number of activities that can get you there. And sometimes the thing you think you had to have has almost nothing to do with your happiness or fulfillment. Like, you think you need to be a best-selling author, but what you really need to be doing is writing every day.
Mm.
And you don't know that until you're in the practice of writing every day and finding out how that is and what's inspiring you and what's drawing you and what you want more of and what you want different. And we learn how to take the data on the actions that are being taken. And then we see what we want different and we rejigger the plan to achieve that. But the most important thing I would say first is to get into some kind of action. Preliminary, imperfect, messy action. Then you at least know more than when you're just sitting and thinking about it all day and beating yourself up for not doing anything.
Okay. So, action, get into action. So, if you were to leave our listeners with the one thing of, other than going obviously to your program, which I'll share all the links in the note or about your masterclass, what's that first thing that
Yeah. So the first step is to take a short amount of action. Let me put that in better English. To commit to a very short work session on whatever the thing is that you're procrastinating on or scared about or not doing well, or it's not going the way you want it to go. Assign yourself 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes max, a very short amount of time, a time that is shorter than what you think you need to get anything meaningful done. There's a reason for that, because if you're working on something for a very short amount of time, You are not going to kick up the inner critic who thinks that you're doing something important and needs to beat you up about it. You're going to be able to set aside judgment for the time being. You're just fucking around for 20 minutes. Most people can find 20 minutes in their day somewhere. If not, then 15. If not, then 10. But somewhere from 10 to 20 minutes. There's a ton of neuroscience around neuroplasticity, how our brains work, that point to how much you can get done and how good you can feel doing it when you work in these short sessions consistently over time. There's just a million reasons that it works really well that way. And that's one of the first productivity myths to break is I need large blocks of time to get things done. That's how things get sidelined and deferred for years and years and years. That's how you start to feel worse and worse and worse about yourself. That's how you give up on your dreams. That's how all sorts of things go sideways. So give yourself a short period of time, do it once, decide on when the next one is going to be, do it again. And when you've done that 3, 4, 5 times, just see how it feels. See what you've got. You will surprise yourself at how satisfying those short work sessions can be when you actually show up for them.
Thank you. I think that's helpful. And also just a nudge to like, just do the damn thing, right?
That's it. Especially if it's something that just takes less than 15 minutes.
Yes, exactly. And sometimes I work better under pressure, actually always, which all these things I'm telling you, you're probably like, okay, Haley, I know exactly what you need and who you are. Um,
Not gonna lie, that's true.
I figured that. I figured that. Oh, I love that. Okay, Deborah. So I always love to round out these episodes, and I think it ties perfectly into what we're talking about success, right? You had all of these big accolades and all of these measures of success that someone from the outside would perceive as, holy shit, she's nailing it, right? She has all the things, but you didn't always feel that way.
Yeah.
How do you define success now? What does that look like for you?
It's a big question. How do I define success now? The number one, I would say, number one thing that I'm measuring these days is my freedom. Time freedom, geographical freedom, financial freedom. These are important metrics for me. So, because like I made a lot of money in my show business career, but not on my terms or timeline. And, somebody else decided what I did for that money. Right. So like the, and I was chained to orchestra pits and recording studios and wherever the productions were. I had a lot of glamour and a lot of success by a lot of conventional metrics in show business, but I did not myself feel like I had an agency to design my life. And that was a very important piece for me when I knew it was time to do something different. It wasn't just pull the money out of the music and make more money. It was also, how am I making that money? What am I doing for that money? What is the creative control that I have in my life? And the fact that I own this business, I own this company, I own all of my work, right? I did a coaching call earlier today where I was like, I feel like changing that phrase. Like now this tool is called something else. And I just swapped it in a whole slide presentation and just decided to call it something different. And I did that, an hour before the call. And I get to do that. And that's the kind of fun, spontaneous, creative thing that I like to do. So now this tool is called something else. It's shaped differently. It's a different color, right? I get to run that particular show. And I also get to delegate out and empower people on my team to make decisions and have it all under the roof of my company and my work, right? Freedom is, I think, the headline: creative freedom, financial freedom, geographical freedom, time freedom. That I have choice about all of those things. And that if I take something on that constrains me in any one of those areas, that's also my choice. Like I can decide that I'm going to do something that's going to take a ton of time, right? But I'm going to do it because I want what's on the other side of it.
Yeah. And because you want to do it, right? Not because you have to do it. I mean, there are things that we just have to do, but because you want to do it. And freedom, I mean, I know it speaks to me, and I think so many of our listeners, is that financial freedom, that freedom of time. Even I was just thinking about that this morning. I'm in Wisconsin, so we're finally getting nice weather. I finally get to sit on my deck and just,
I love Wisconsin.
I get to work, bring my laptop and sit in the grass,
Mm-hmm.
the woods. Like just, if I were still in an office or somebody else was telling me what to do, I wouldn't have that freedom.
Right.
If one of my kids he wasn't feeling good, so I let him sleep in this morning and brought him to school late.
Yeah.
It's just, that freedom means so, so much.
It really does. And even when we don't have it all dialed in, like back to the perfectionism, and another big, big, big core principle that I teach and encourage my clients to do is to celebrate the wins, even when they're small, even when you think it's drop in the bucket, even when you think it's not adding up to anything, or it's like a yeah, but I'm not there yet, right? I remember early on in my coaching business, I had a moment of, and there were a lot of things that were not yet working or that I was very unsure about or whatever. But I was working out of the second bedroom of my condo at the time, and I got to come out of the office and just make myself some lunch. That's all it was. I was like making myself a salad. I was like dicing some cucumbers or something like that. And I was looking out at this beautiful sunny day and this pretty balcony with the rosebush that I'd cultivated and a bunch of, like California in full bloom is quite a thing, right? And I just remember thinking, okay, I get to decide when I'm taking lunch and come out and make lunch and look at the flowers and walk out into the sunshine and feel the sun on my face for a few minutes. And I just get to do that. Okay, cool. And even though there was a lot going wrong and it was far from perfect, I did not have like the lifestyle thing dialed in at all yet. But just that moment was a precious moment of freedom and agency, recognized and installed and reinforced in my system. This that I love is safe to have. I would like more of this, please. And those are moments where we're programming our own subconscious to deliver us more of what we want. So it's not just rah rah cheerleader shit to be like, celebrate the win. No, you're actually creating more of what you want by doing that. It's really important.
I'm so glad you brought that up because that's something I've been working on as well is I've started journaling and it's just little short pounds of time because that's what I have. And I know if I don't keep it simple, I'm not going to keep with it. But it's all about gratitude. Like
Mhm.
just like you said, those small moments of walking outside. The other day, I'm walking across the street from our in-laws live across the street. So they take my kiddos a lot, but I'm just like, I never thought I would be here today. I'm so grateful to just be here. So just recognizing it in the moment and it's so powerful. And it just over time, it's made a change in how I show up too. So thank you for sharing that.
My
All
pleasure.
right. I will, of course, like I said, share all of the links in the show notes below. But can you share a little bit about your masterclass before we end today?
Oh, yeah. So this is a free video training that I created in order to help people with everything that we have talked about, basically. So I teach 3 secrets: how to get even your most daunting stuff done in 20 minutes a day or less, how to make confident, effective decisions and stop second guessing and waffling, and how to double your free time without bailing or failing where it counts. So these are 3 secrets that are really important shifts in how you think about what's possible, reality transformational level stuff that I learned myself and that I'm very happy to provide. So the most important thing to know about this training, besides if it resonates with you, watch it, is you have 5 days. So one of the things that I do is I build in assistance for my procrastinating perfectionists who want to be able to do it all, do it perfectly. The training itself is about an hour. Do not need an hour at a time. You need an hour over 5 days. So take 10 minutes a day to invest in your own transformation, the change you want. And watch that video. Make sure you've watched the whole thing within the 5 days. Once the 5 days are over, it's over. So I do put deadlines on things to help people get shit done because without deadlines, I know I don't do anything. So here's your deadline. Once you sign up, you have 5 days exactly, 5 times 24 hours. So you have 120 hours from the moment you sign up to watch it. Do sign up and do watch it. You'll get emails from me, just checking up on you and saying, have you watched it yet? Here's what you want to get. Reply to any of them. I personally see them, and I love getting replies on emails. I'm here to help.
Amazing. Well, I know I can't wait to get my hands on that and, and start getting more shit done. So thank you, Deborah. I had so much fun talking to you today. Thank you so much.